What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Chapter Podcast. My name's Stephen Wright, joined by Mr. William Monroe. Will, how you doing?
Doing well. Another Monday here, coming down to the wire with a pretty exciting game. I think you've got a little more stakes in it than usual here at the Niners on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, we will see. I'm sure at one point the schedule makers looked at this game and thought it was really important. 49ers have not been as good as we expected. Now, the Seahawks and Seahawks lost this week. The Cardinals lost too, right?
Cardinals lost. So, yeah, they lost to Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, that makes things a little bit more interesting. I don't know if it's interesting enough for the 49ers to win and still make it anything, but you never know. So yeah, we'll see. Should be a good game, hopefully, or a blowout. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess feasibly you think if everyone in your division loses but you, that's always a good thing, right? So,
absolutely,
you somehow knock off, the Rams. They're 7-3. Cardinals are 8-2. They'd move up to 4-5, and it seems like there's only really 4 or 5 good teams in the NFC. So those last 2 spots are kind of wide open.
So you can grab a wild card spot, get hot at the right time.
Carolina, that's the name of the game. So. Yeah, so I mean, still got a chance there, and I'm sure there's a lot of fantasy implications to be had here on Monday Night Football as well.
Yeah, indeed. Some things that we'll need to wait on from a waiver perspective here. But yeah, it should be a good game. We got Patriots and Falcons coming up Thursday of this week. The Rams and Broncos.
Could be some fantasy implications there.
Yeah,
lighter week for buys. I mean, you got a couple of running backs there with probably 3 startable running backs with the Rams and Broncos. Some receivers people are relying on there, and maybe even some defenses.
Yeah, at least one quarterback, yeah.
So, I mean, it'll be interesting. But, yeah, speaking of that quarterback there, Steve, I need a good 45 points here out of Matt Stafford to win in our work league.
Up against the 49ers? I don't – it's not impossible.
No, I think it's high on the years, low 30s. Yeah, so it's definitely
a big ask, but
big ask. But hey, maybe OBJ goes off and gets his first game in, 3 catches, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Maybe we'll see. But yeah, you ready to jump into the waivers here?
Yeah, we got to get ready here for week 11, Steve.
We're closing in.
Every year, it's just, it's always blows my mind when we get here, but it's always the same amount of time to get here.
Yeah, it's just a few weeks, but yeah, it passes by quick, doesn't it?
That it does. And couple of injuries throughout the week, during the week, and then on Sunday here that impacting the league, and some interesting matchups coming up here. I think the big one is the knee sprain of Aaron Jones. Last I saw, it looks like they're expecting 1 to 2 weeks, so not as severe as it's like a major injury. And I think they said he has had 2 knee sprains in his NFL career, and both times he's been out. Or I'm sorry, 3 knee sprains. The one time it was the 2 weeks, the other 2 were at the end of the season, so they just shut him down. So yeah, I'm not sure how long it's truly going to last. Expectations about 2 weeks, but AJ Dillon definitely seems like he's going to be usable in the interim here.
Yeah, which is a shame because he's rostered, according to Yahoo, in about 72% of leagues. So your odds of getting
threw him on here because I was surprised to see that rostership pretty high. But I think that's if he's out there, he's the go spend up, because even if it's only 2 weeks, that he's the guy you want to go get. You got Minnesota, you got the Rams, and then a bye week. So you're going to have 2 weeks of usable, the RB1 on his team, clearly. I think they have Kylan Hill, who's like a 7th round rookie, and then I believe the last name Taylor of the other running back. I saw him in the game, so it seems like it's going to be him getting the lion's share of the work if he's available in your league.
Yeah, so if you could get him, he's definitely somebody you're paying up for. If you're the Aaron Jones owner, it's probably I'd probably be burning my entirety of my fab on him just to nab your handcuff for the rest of the year, because like you said, that they're saying 1 to 2 weeks, but 2 weeks comes, he comes back in the game, re-aggravates the injury, and suddenly it's Dillon for another 2 weeks. So definitely the time to grab your handcuff on Aaron Jones if you didn't have him already. So I'd be willing to drop a lot in that situation. But yeah, it's an important week. You're driving for the playoffs. You're dropping quite a bit to get Mr. Dillon for these 2 weeks. Probably upwards of, I don't even know, 50% maybe. I mean, that's...
Yeah, you'd think, especially if you can get a guy that can help you win a couple games here, maybe helps you in the playoffs, but at the very least, a couple. It'll be interesting, though, because they do have to bye in week 13. So IR, I think we talked about this recently, but does that mean you missed 3 weeks or 3 games?
I believe it was 3 weeks, I think.
So maybe they IR him because they have Minnesota, LA, and the bye, and then, you give him an extra week to recover, and then he comes back for Chicago in week 14.
Yeah, that's possible. We'll have to see, but yeah, AJ Dillon, he's a big one. Again, rostered in a lot. I think what might end up being the bigger free agent guy, Raimonde Stevenson, only rostered in 32%. That's kind of the big thing. He had a big week. Damian Harris was out with a concussion. I'm not sure if there's, he's expected to be back this week or if they really know anything yet. But he had a, take the starting job kind of performance, which makes him an interesting pick, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think he had, 2 touchdowns?
Yep. 2 touchdowns. And
both of them, I believe, were shorter.
Yards,
but I mean, still
80 yards, 100 yards.
Yeah. Like 20 carries, 100 yards. I mean, 5 a pop. Great. 2 touchdowns, 4 catches for 14 yards. So, a couple of catches on 5 targets that are always good to see in any type of PPR league. He looked like he could do it against, what had proved to be a pretty tough Cleveland defense, and now he goes up against a pretty soft Atlanta defense on Thursday. So I think he's definitely a guy you want to go get. You don't, he's in a similar situation where he's got Atlanta, Tennessee, and Buffalo, then the bye. So a little bit tougher defenses after that. You don't really know what's happening with Damian Harris. But I think I wouldn't mind spending up on him because I think at the very least he's a guy that's in like a timeshare, right? Maybe you get a week or 2 of him being the sole guy, or sole guy to a degree as you can in New England, because I know Brandon Bolden was involved too. But he definitely seems explosive, and then he's not a bad guy to have down the stretch if another injury pops up.
Yeah, absolutely. The injury concern makes it tougher because you could be dropping, 30-40% of your fab and just get 1 week out of him, and then he goes to a timeshare, and it's not ideal, but that's probably what it's going to end up taking. After a week like that.
You imagine someone spins up exactly after seeing that, and maybe they don't look truly into the injury there for Damian Harris. So
fair enough. Next one on the list. Definitely probably the least interesting to me.
Yeah.
Matt Breida popped off. First time he was active.
I had to put him in there.
Yeah, I mean,
it's crazy.
People are going to grab him. It's the first time he's been active since I think week 1 or week 2. Had himself a good week. He's rostered in 0% of leagues. So if you want him, he's out there. But
6 touches, 50 yards, 2 touchdowns. So 3 catches, 3 rushes.
Maybe they go with a
probably
high hand.
More of just like an emergency handcuff.
Yeah,
exactly. Maybe it was a hot hand thing they're using him. He seems like he's a solid receiver, but Singletary and Moss are both still there, so tough to really rely on him. But having the game that he had, I figured we had to at least touch base on him.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a deeper league and got a roster spot to burn, then that's fine. Maybe they continue to roll the high hand, and he gets hot, but you shouldn't be banking on Breida at all.
No, and I think for the most part, it's more you hope someone else sees the performance and gets excited and goes after him, and it takes your competition for A.J. Dillon or Stevenson one person out of it by going after Breida.
Yep, absolutely. So he's pretty easy. Boston Scott, we've talked about a bunch of times. I don't think the situation's really changed. He had himself a good week. Continues to be fantasy relevant. We don't have any update on Sanders yet, do we, Mr. Eagles fan?
I think the word is the team thinks there's a chance he can play this week. I know he can come off of the IR this week as well. He's eligible to come off. So Sunday, 1:00 game, I think there's a decent chance he comes in. And I don't know how excited you are to play Scott even without him, but if Sanders is back, I mean, it's probably Gainwell is fully on the bench and a 3-way timeshare where Scott probably loses some carries because it seems like Howard's, been that kind of veteran guy and that they want to give the ball to. So I think it's probably Gainwell's fully on the bench. take a few carries from Scott, a few more from Scott, a couple from Howard, and it's really like a 3-way timeshare, I'd guess, that you probably have Sanders at the top of.
Yeah, I agree. The next one to me is actually the more interesting of the ones we have left. Deonta Foreman.
Looked good.
He did look good. I believe, I forget if he outsnapped Peterson or outcarried Peterson.
He touched him.
There you go.
Looks like he had 11 carries for 30 yards, caught both of his targets for 48 yards. So 13 touches, 78 yards. He had one really good catch and run. But yeah, I mean, good game overall. It's tough to really bank on, who it's going to be. Peterson's still there. Nick Nichols is still there, but Houston coming up this week. So, I mean, maybe they all
yeah, exactly. It could be all of them. Or probably likely in some, Baltimore hell situation of, what running backs are going to be any given week. But, he's definitely more interesting than Breida. Just, we've seen some good things from him. So
as long as he can stay healthy.
Yeah, as long as he stay healthy, that's the ultimate question.
His Achilles heel, if you will.
How nice of you.
Sorry, the Foreman, if you will.
Indeed. Sorry, sir. Final two guys here. J.D. Mckissick didn't do a lot this week, but the game script surprisingly did not favor him. So it might be a good time to snag him up. He's only rostered in 57% of leagues, but after a down week, if you want him, you could probably get him for free this week.
If we look, I mean, Carolina looked a lot better. The defense is very good. And if Cam's playing this week, I think CMC went down, but I don't know if they needed him. So maybe they rested him the rest of the game. Have you heard anything about CMC injury?
I have not. I'll do a quick look real quick to see if I see anything, but I
think he went off the field, but maybe they just didn't go back to the game much because it was a blowout, and he came back in, but it wasn't super major. But I think that still, regardless, is a good offense that if Cam's in there, can probably perform, and maybe you have a really good game script with McKissick. Maybe they are still celebrating beating the world champs, and you might be able to catch them.
Maybe.
Anything on CMC there?
So it does say that they rested him because the game was just a blowout. But it does say that beat reporters are speculating that his hamstring is still bothering him. So speculation, I mean, it is hamstring and they tend to linger. So I think it does make sense. But, it doesn't seem like it was anything serious of note, but who knows? It's still bothering him.
I mean, the schedule
hurt back, or it could flare back up. Who knows?
Schedule looks, like you could have some game scripts that work in McKissick's favor with Carolina this week. At Carolina, home for Seattle, and obviously they didn't look very good in Russ's first game back against Green Bay, but that would be the third game of him back. Maybe he gets more into a groove. You got at Vegas, home for Dallas, so a couple of good offenses there, and possibly a chance for some good game scripts coming up for McKissick. So he's interesting if you want to throw him on your bench for an opportune time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then our last running back here, I really can't say too much about him. Jeff Wilson. We'll have to see how the game plays out tonight and then make a waiver wire decision based on that. He was active in the last game and didn't get a single snap. So, whether he's active as like an emergency basis and just didn't get use, or, if they're just not factoring him, who knows? I think we'll know more this week, but only rostered in 20% of leagues. So if he does pop off tonight, then, lots of opportunities to snag him up.
Yeah, and that's really where I'm looking at him as well. I think, first week back, who knows why they didn't give him any touches, but like you said, maybe it was more of an emergency thing, but it just seems like Shanahan really loves him. Every year he's there and he's somewhat relevant at the very least.
Touchdown
filling
guy.
In for an injury. Yeah, so definitely a guy I think that you could do worse having him as your sixth running back on your team as a depth option.
Yes, sir. Moving on, wide receivers here. Bryan Edwards had himself a good game. Only rostered in 18% of leagues, so he's out there if you want to go get him. I'm torn on him because he had a good game. Ruggs isn't there anymore, so things should be opening up for him. At the same time, I think he only had like 4 targets, so it's not like the volume wasn't there. He just did a lot with it. So that worries me a little bit. But the
and the
opportunity's there.
concern I think also is that I think it was a low target-ish game. Well, maybe not target game, but not the best game for Waller either. 7 targets, 4 catches, 24 yards. So a down game for Waller. You imagine that changes in the future here. So yeah, I mean, I think, Dynasty, you're probably excited to see it, but redraft, maybe you're not, sold yet. I wouldn't mind, if you can get them for $1 or $2 and just throw them on your bench to see if this continues. Great. He seems, energetic and into it when he's on the field. He's just not getting the targets that we would imagine he would get, unfortunately, still. So, I mean, if he keeps playing well and performing with the low targets he does get, I think there's no way they can stop targeting him. I think that it would increase. So, willing to take a flyer, not paying much to throw him on your bench.
Yep. Another guy I might be more interested in is Jamal Agnew. 3 out of the past 4 weeks, double digits for fantasy scoring. He's been putting it together in a few different ways. The targets haven't been too bad. In fact, a couple weeks ago, he had 12 targets. So yeah, he's been pretty good in that department. Only rostered in 9% of leagues. Probably because he's a Jaguar, and that does some damage. But an interesting player. What do you think of Agnew?
Yeah, I mean, it's just I feel like there's a lot of volatility there. You have probably a lower floor, but he seems to be absolutely destroying the Laviska Shenault, usage here in the offense, and you can't trust Shenault because of him. He's super explosive, so if you just need like a high upside guy, I don't mind it, but it just seems like he needs to be like a deeper league to really be able to be confident throwing him out there.
Yeah, agreed. Another one, and I know this is a big one for us. He's on our dynasty league, but Elijah Moore. I don't know what to make of Elijah Moore. This is like 4 weeks in a row of really good play from a fantasy perspective. Now the problem is he got a touchdown, which counts, but it was just a garbage time. You take that away. Like his game prior to that, he had done next to nothing. Like he was useless for fantasy. He just got a garbage touchdown. I don't know if you can rely on that out of the Jets. Especially, Zach Wilson's looking to come back, and I don't know who he's going to favor. But he's still that young guy that, first year could be second half kind of breakout. He's kind of hard to trust, given the quarterback situation, the garbage touchdowns, the Jets as a whole. What do you think of Mr. Moore?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's also excited to have him in a dynasty league and redraft leagues. It's tough to say. The one thing you can count on is that there's going to be garbage time for the Jets pretty much the whole year. So, the
true.
argument that he is getting all his work and his touchdowns in garbage time, it's like, well, it's the Jets, so there's always going to be garbage time. You likely have a chance, of him showing up there. And I think the Zach Wilson thing is warranted because he seems to be having a really good rapport with Michael White. But you'd think that, Zach Wilson will look at his first few starts and they weren't very good. So he's got to think, all right, I got to do something else. And I'm sure he's been on the sideline watching Elijah Moore play well. So I think you got to want to get him involved a little more. They drafted him in the second round, so you think they're going to want to keep utilizing him. So I wouldn't mind, picking him up. I started him in a dynasty league this week with some injuries and was happy with the production. So I think he's definitely worth throwing on your bench if you need a depth receiver. And, at some point you got to just stay in the flames because he's been playing really well.
Yeah, he has. And from one rookie to another, Rashad Bateman, both of these guys, about 50% rostered. Talk about Bateman every week for a few weeks now. I'm surprised he's still only 50% rostered. But I called the breakout for him this week. It wasn't really breakout, but it was his best fantasy performance so far. He got up into the double digits in a half-point PPR, so that's always good to see.
Yeah. 6 catches, 80 yards.
8 targets. 8 targets a week before that, 6 the 2 prior. Like he's getting the volume. He's got to be someone you got to have.
I think it's clear that, he's the 2. Like, Sammy Watkins was on the field, but he is clearly, the second best receiver on this team, receiver wise, not counting Mark Andrews. And he definitely seemed to, almost outproduce Hollywood Brown this week. It was surprising. It was a really weird game there, that Thursday game against Miami. So maybe you can kind of throw the script out a bit, but he's definitely someone who can work downfield, but he can go across the middle. He can very versatile. He can do it all. So he, I think, is the guy that I'd be most wanting to pick up out of everyone here on this waiver show.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. 100%. Another younger player here, Mr. Van Jefferson, rostered in 59% of leagues, which is surprising. But I guess he just got a bump after the Robert Woods injury.
Yeah, I'm sure that Saturday, a lot of people went out, picked up whatever that other guy's name is, that when the news came out that this one specific guy is going to take over the Woods role.
Yeah, I remember seeing the story. I did pay no mind in the name because I didn't really believe it mattered. But yeah, I mean, there's really not a lot to say about Jefferson. We'll have to wait and see what he does tonight. And then, you listeners will have to make a waiver decision tomorrow. It is worth noting he's on the bye next week. Like we said, the Rams are on bye. So you might be able to get him a little bit cheaper.
Yeah. And maybe you get him, maybe someone picks him up or has picked him up. Then we get to next week and then or get to tomorrow or Wednesday and they realize, oh crap, he's on bye and got some waiver or the bye week issues. So he may get dropped this week, midweek, because of, just roster limitations. So you might be able to get him here on the bye a little easier.
Yep, absolutely. So wait and see on him. And then our final wide receiver, Robbie Anderson, rostered in about 40% of leagues.
Showing up.
Yeah, got a touchdown.
It's the first time we've seen him do anything. Yeah, 6 targets, 4 catches, only 37 yards. But, it seems like Cam was looking his way on the few plays that he had. So I think the upside, is back a little bit with him. And I think the expectation is Cam's going to start next week.
Yeah, and it's all going to come down to your personal feelings on Cam. If you think Cam gives Robbie Anderson a bump, then you want Robbie Anderson. If you think Cam's going to be more like Patriots Cam, or he just wasn't throwing the ball very well, then, you're probably assuming this is a one and done. But you really got to make that decision for yourself, because it's not on Anderson, it's on Cam, and he creates a lot of emotions. A lot of strong feelings on him. So, me personally, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I would do it because I don't trust Cam. And there's just so many other options there. But what do you think of Robbie there?
Yeah, he's a guy that I think, we talked about it with a few other guys. You pick him up, you throw him on your bench, you give him a week or two and just see how Cam looks, see what kind of targets he's getting. Definitely can't start him, even against a porous Washington defense this week. I don't think you can start him just yet, but I wouldn't mind, like you said, maybe throwing $1 or $2 claim in on him behind some of these other guys, and it's kind of your fallback plan.
Yes, sir. Moving to some tight ends here. Mr. Conklin had himself a good game. Only rostered 30% of leagues. I was surprised about that. I'd imagine that's going to change this week. He's been fantasy relevant for, I don't even know, 4 weeks now, 3 weeks, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
For a tight end, you'd think he'd be gobbled up, but I guess not. I'd be putting a fair amount of fab on Mr. Conklin if you had tight end problems, right?
Only 11 yards, which is tough, but 5 targets, 2 touchdowns. They clearly are looking to him whenever they can, and definitely in the red zone here, especially this week. But he's been relevant. 5 for 7, I think the 2 weeks prior, 57 yards, one of them, 45 another. So he's a solid baseline tight end, and you can do worse than your touchdown only tight ends that you have out there. So I think he and the next guy here are the two that I'd be most interested in, just because of the volume they're getting in their offense.
Yeah, that other guy being Mr. Dan Arnold, another one of those.
Mr. Dan Arnold,
another one of those Jaguars. Had himself a 2-point conversion this week. That helped him quite a bit. But he had 60-something yards, 65, 66 yards, something like that. That's pretty good. I got him up here, 67 yards. 7 targets this week, last week, 10 the week before. The targets are there. He has yet to score, which is a shame. But, only a matter of time with this target share, I would imagine. And it's a team that needs pass catchers. So, yeah, Dan Arnold, I'm surprised by his rostership as well. 26%. Like, he's out there if you want him.
Yeah, I think he's another solid streaming tight end that you can throw in. Got San Francisco this coming week, so could be a negative game script. But Conklin has Green Bay, another negative game script. So I think both guys are solid streams.
Mr. Logan Thomas we have next, still on the IR. Have you heard anything about him? Because I have not.
Yeah, last I heard Friday, they were just basically saying he's just not ready yet to get on the field. So I think we have to wait and see. I didn't hear anything today about practice, so we'll have to wait to see if he gets on the field tomorrow, to see if it's working in the right direction. Comes to the point where, like, hey, if you still have an open IR spot, don't mind adding him, throwing him on your IR until he comes off. I mean, it's probably something that you would have done earlier, but while he's still eligible, it's clear that they're going to use the tight end, and Ricky Seals-Jones has been the guy, but they love Logan Thomas when he is healthy. So, I mean, he's more of a stash guy. But as of now, I don't mind throwing him in if you can't get your Conklin or your Arnold.
Yeah, as long as you got a burner spot there.
Yeah.
Mr. Cole Kmet didn't play this week, right? Bears are on bye? Yes? Yeah.
Yep, he was on bye, but he has been getting utilized the last couple weeks. 8 targets right before the bye week, 6 targets the week before, 6 the week before that. So they've been working him in. And, you got a rookie quarterback. They tend to not be able to get downfield as often as some of these veterans, and I think Cole Kmet has been the benefactor of that.
Yeah, it could be a guy that you could scoop up because people forgot about him because he didn't play. People are going to be fighting over Conklin and Arnold, and you can sweep in there and get Kmet if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, a nice backup option to those first two. As well, here you have Gerald Everett, 20% rostered, Seattle tight end going up against Arizona this week, and they were definitely utilizing him. I think it may have just been, Russ trying to come back from the injury. They couldn't really get downfield a ton, but catches 8 of 8 targets for 63 yards.
Yeah, Russ has used a tight end in the past, so he's definitely worth grabbing up and holding on to see if that holds true or if it was just a one-off. But, if Russ is going to target him a lot, I think he's pretty talented. He could be an every week guy. It's good enough offense, so I think you can throw him on your bench. You don't want to rely on him yet, but someone to watch out for a little bit.
And our last tight end, another guy getting some targets here, Adam Troutman catches 5 of 6 targets for 32 yards. So nothing super exciting, but the Eagles have not been great against the tight end this year. So he could be an intriguing stream this week and just continues to be utilized in the offense, even if it's, not at super high numbers. He's getting the targets, which is reassuring.
Yeah, absolutely. It all comes down to volume for him.
Yeah, I think it's more volume and then, really good matchup. Eagles have been the worst against the tight end this year. So if you are desperate, you can't get some of the other guys we talked about earlier, I wouldn't mind throwing him in as an emergency option and really just hoping the matchup works.
So speaking of streaming, let's go ahead and get to the streaming portion of the show here. We'll start with our quarterbacks. We have Mr. Cam Newton, we mentioned before, versus Washington, Baker Mayfield versus Detroit, Mack Jones at Atlanta, or Jimmy G at Jacksonville. Who do you want out of that group?
Yeah, I want to say Cam. I think there's a lot more volatility there because you just don't know what you're getting outside of the limited snaps he played in week 1. So definitely low floor, high upside for Cam with the rushing ability. But Mack Jones is interesting going up against Atlanta here on Thursday. He's played well. You can argue he's been the most consistent of all of these rookie quarterbacks so far. So kind of like him against Atlanta, and Jimmy G seems like a sneaky option as well there against Jacksonville.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Jimmy G always has the potential to pop off, but his floor's not there. Mayfield's kind of in the same boat. Now, he did get hurt this week. Did he come back into that game?
Yeah. I didn't see if he came back. I know he just didn't look good, and I think the game was over.
Yeah, Red Zone stopped going to that game. And I
that was
what was going on.
Brutal.
So yeah,
a good matchup against Detroit, but I think he's banged up. I don't know that you can, unless the word is that he is fully ready to go day to day with a knee injury. But it looked like he was holding his ribs at a point, like he was just getting eaten alive.
He's just banged up. So I don't think I could start Cam. I think I'll go with Mack Jones. Mack Jones will be good, so I'm fine with that, especially against Atlanta. I think Cam probably does have higher upside, but I don't think I could personally roll the dice on him. I did have him in redraft last year, and he hurt me a little bit, so maybe there's some feelings there. But he's going up against his former coach, and Ron Rivera. Somebody knows how to stop Cam Newton. It's going to be Ron Rivera. So we'll see.
They actually asked Ron Rivera, "Oh, do you have like an emergency kind of set of plays that you have to stop Cam Newton?" And he said, "Yeah, I do actually."
Yeah, there
so
you go.
He has like
he knows
a list of defensive plays that he has in mind specifically for if he ever had to play against his former quarterback.
Yeah, he knows. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Finally here, speaking of defensive plays, defensive streamers, Titans versus Houston, the Browns versus Detroit, Panthers versus Washington, 49ers at Jacksonville, or Dolphins at the Jets. Who do you like?
Yeah, I think they're all decent options. I think Tennessee probably your best option just with the way they're playing. I mean, it wasn't a great game against New Orleans. It wasn't bad. And then that, game against Indy 2 weeks ago, you have a good matchup there. So I don't mind that. The Browns against Detroit as well. I mean, Jared Goff had, I think they said it was 50 yards going into overtime.
Yeah, he had like a 30-yard pass or something. You're like, oh, he's up to 88 yards. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, and I get it's Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a great defense, but the Browns are a really good defense too. So I would not mind. I mean, you got to have to weigh who the quarterback's going to be, but if you get Chubb back, you might get Hunt back this week. If they can just get a great running game, you might be able to win with Case Keenum and just controlling the clock. So I think Titans and Browns are both really good options here, and 49ers are sneaky against Jacksonville as well.
Yeah, I would think the 49ers were my shout out as well. Titans and Browns roster ships up around 60. 49ers a little bit less, down at 45. That'll be kind of my shout out. That could be an interesting matchup against Jacksonville, but I'm pretty in line with you on that front too.
Yeah, and then Panthers, good defense, only 29% rostered. I wouldn't mind throwing them on my bench. I mean, unless you have a great matchup, Washington's not a bad heads up there either. I know we just picked them up in our dynasty league, so that could be a start there as well.
Absolutely. Anyone but the Dolphins, really, I think is what we're saying.
Another decent matchup for them, but yeah, it's just tough to rely on that team.
Well, that's going to take care of today's episode. Tune in on Thursday for our Start Sit episode for the week. Until then, trust your board.